Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Friday, February 19th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. A major milestone today at the San Ysidro port of entry. The Biden administration processed 25 asylum seekers who had been sent to Mexico under the Remain in Mexico program. KPBS reporter Max Rivlin-Nadler was there.
25 asylum seekers were loaded onto a bus on Friday morning and driven into the United States, where they'll continue their asylum cases, no longer made to wait in Mexico. But for many others who are at the port of entry on Friday, the waiting continues. Some of the people lined up at the port of entry have been here for as long as 3 days. Many of them were not part of the Remain in Mexico program, which means right now they're not eligible to be processed by the United States program, allowing people in Remain in Mexico to enter the United States. One of those people camped out was Marjorie Rosales, who preferred we not show her face. She's from Honduras, which she fled because she was sexually assaulted after an extortion attempt on her small business. She spent 1 year in Chiapas, Mexico, waiting for a visa, and has been in Tijuana for another year. She desperately wants to claim asylum for her and her 2-year-old daughter. She makes a living selling ice cream on the street. She says she hopes the president opens his heart and helps them, those on the border, because they're sleeping outside and it's cold. Many migrants came to the port of entry on Friday looking for information, and advocates handed out flyers to explain who qualified for the new policy. But the border remains closed for almost all asylum seekers. Mexican officials explained to many asylum seekers none of them would be allowed to enter the U.S. under the new policy, including the thousands of Haitians and Cameroonians in Tijuana who were never enrolled in the Remain in Mexico program. Alex Mensing with the Innovation Law Lab helped migrants understand today's changes.
And so today, a lot of people have showed up to the port of entry who don't have enough information, who maybe don't quite understand what MPP is, who have heard rumors or misinformation about what is going to happen today.
The 25 people that were admitted to the U.S. today were tested for COVID-19 beforehand. They'll now be helped by the San Diego Rapid Response Network, a coalition of local nonprofits, and the county, which has provided hotel rooms for the asylum seekers.
They'll be transported to a hotel, local hotels, and then we'll begin that work of doing the health screening, figuring out where they're going, helping them make contact, figuring out whether they have the funds or we need to provide the funds for the air travel.
The Rapid Response Network says it's prepared for the program to ramp up to hundreds of asylum seekers each day. But for the thousands in Tijuana this program doesn't yet apply to, they'll continue to remain. Max Rivlin-Nadler, KPBS News.
The fight over restarting youth sports is still playing out in a North County court even after the governor announced revised guidelines. A San Diego Superior Court judge heard arguments in a lawsuit today arguing that high school students should be allowed to compete like the pros. While the judge is weighing his decision, new rules mean that millions of California kids could soon be playing outdoor sports despite most schools not being open. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman has reaction on the big play change from the state.
Really excited to have finally reached this place.
Torrey Pines High School football coach Ron Gladnick says news that some youth sports can resume play outdoors is a good first step.
Anything we can do that helps our kids is a positive thing to do. It's one of the reasons we didn't tie being in the classroom with playing sports.
After weeks of negotiations, today the governor relaxed restrictions, allowing some kids to soon take the field again.
This is a week from today. This is for outdoor sports, including contact sports, again, including football, rugby.
The governor says there will be weekly coronavirus testing for athletes, though.
Some testing requirements. The state of California will provide for. We will absorb the cost.
The state is also only allowing counties with low COVID-19 transmission rates to resume play. Right now, that's about 20 counties throughout the state, and San Diego is not there yet. But Gladnick says County Supervisor Nathan Fletcher did tell him that our case rate has been gradually falling.
And based on the conversation I had this morning, I would fully expect us to be there by next week.
Today, Fletcher released a statement saying, in part, this is a positive step in our recovery, and he applauds the governor and Gladnick for their work in getting this done.
Today is one of the first days in a very, very long time that millions, think about that, millions of kids across the state of California can smile and look forward to something.
Members of the Let Them Play coalition say while there is reason to celebrate, more work is still yet to be done.
I know indoor sports still aren't where they want to be, but if there's one lesson to be learned from what we've started, that doesn't mean we can't get there. And now that work will begin.
Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Governor Gavin Newsom says he does not support a school reopening plan announced by California lawmakers because it does not go far enough or fast enough. The $6.5 billion proposal would require county health departments to offer vaccinations to school staff for those who return to in-person classes. Today, the governor said vaccinations will be prioritized for teachers and school staff across the state starting on March 1st.
We are also setting aside 10% of all first doses, beginning with a baseline of 75,000 doses every single week that will be made available and set aside for those educators and childcare workers that are supporting our efforts to get our kids back into in-person instruction.
The plan agreed to by state lawmakers would also require schools to reopen April 15th to vulnerable students in lower grades. Newsom says he wants to bring back more students sooner. San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria issued a statement saying he's calling on school districts to provide clear, specific timelines on getting kids back in the classroom. He added that he's working with districts on vaccination plans for teachers. San Diego County Supervisor Nathan Fletcher gave his first State of the County address last night. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says it was full of reform-minded policies.
Fletcher is leading the first Democratic majority on the Board of Supervisors in recent memory, and he pledged to use it to enact a, quote, new progressive agenda. COVID-19, he said, has exposed a host of societal problems that go beyond just public health.
We see clearly there is a pandemic of inequality that we must stamp out, a pandemic of injustice that we must overcome, a pandemic of intolerance that we must unify against.
Among the handful of policy announcements that came from the speech, new county offices to enforce labor laws and support immigrants and refugees, and an agreement with Sheriff Bill Gore to abandon efforts at privatizing health care in the county's jail system.
Sheriff Gore will put a stop to the expansion of outsourcing health care, and together we will seek a significant increase in the number of county health nurses, county mental health professionals, and county drug treatment providers in our jails. We will embrace services like medication for addiction treatment and a new focus on connections into ongoing care upon release.
Fletcher acknowledged his agenda is ambitious, but with the majority of the board on his side, his biggest challenge likely won't be getting the votes to pass reforms, but rather making sure those reforms actually work. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
While coronavirus case numbers are dropping, the need for personal protective equipment, or PPE, continues. Last Mile San Diego is helping to meet that need by coordinating donations throughout the county. Organizers leading this effort say a distribution this massive is no easy task.
A distribution this massive was incredibly difficult to collaborate. We had to collaborate with multiple groups, including the Iron Workers 229, Murphy's Produce with Purpose, the Teamsters.
Today's shipment of 76,000 hand sanitizers and 2,000 infrared thermometers were received by Oceanside Mayor Esther Sanchez. Sanchez plans on distributing the PPE throughout the hardest hit cities of North County. Since the pandemic began, complaints about trash and recycling programs in San Diego are up 45% from last year. That's according to a new iNewsSource analysis. Investigative reporter Mary Plummer has more.
Several San Diego city departments are short-staffed due to the pandemic, and that means San Diego residents are running into delays and other problems with city services. About 1 in 6 city employees has missed work due to the virus. So if you've noticed recycling bins sitting out or trash cans filled to the brim, you're not alone. An iNewsSource analysis of recent complaints found it's the top reported problem citywide. Nick Wright is the labor relations manager at the San Diego Municipal Employees Association. The union represents nearly half of the city's employees.
The city is doing a lot to ensure that the employees are safe, following everything that they need to do and even going above and beyond. But at the end of the day, COVID is still there. And so what unfortunately has happened is it's impacted a large number of employees throughout the city, but that does cause delays in service.
Along with trash problems, broken streetlights and potholes fell within the top 10 complaint categories. Streetlight repairs are currently on a backlog of more than 4 months. For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource investigative reporter Mary Plummer.
iNewsSource is an independently funded nonprofit partner of KPBS. The federal government is working to speed up delayed vaccine shipments, but for now, several sites are impacted. The Petco Park Vaccination Superstation is closed again, at least through tomorrow. The superstation at Cal State San Marcos is only offering second doses. Those in Chula Vista and La Mesa have appointments available this weekend for the Pfizer vaccine, but they are rescheduling appointments for the Moderna formula. The Del Mar Superstation will stay open at least through this weekend. Severe winter weather in other parts of the country are responsible for the delays in vaccine shipments. The White House COVID-19 response team says the storm created a backlog of 6 million doses, impacting deliveries to all 50 states. Still, it is confident it can get back on track within the next week.
We're also working with our partners to move up scheduled deliveries whenever possible and to surge shipment operations through the end of the week into the weekend. We're in conversation about extended hours and additional appointments to try and reschedule shots given the storm.
UPS says drivers are still making pickups and deliveries where conditions allow them to stay safe. FedEx says vaccine deliveries are getting priority, but the weather is impacting much of their network.
We're looking at some marine clouds working back into the area tonight, mostly towards the coast as usual. But then as we head into tomorrow, it actually gets cooler and a bit breezy this weekend because we're going to start to see an offshore flow pattern come back. And that means we're staying dry. Heading through tonight, we've got, again, a couple of those clouds working their way into places like San Diego here, 51 for the low there. Oceanside coming in at 43. And mostly, again, quiet across the area. You'll notice those clouds, again, mostly towards the coast here, just kind of our usual marine layer setup. Nothing too unusual from this pattern here as we just keep kind of the onshore flow ahead of the next storm system, which is actually taking place much farther towards the north. There's a cold front kind of digging through, and there will be moisture through the interior southwest. But for us, we stay dry as this front presses through. What it will lead to, though, is an offshore flow for us on the backside of the front. So we're going to start to see the winds change tomorrow, and what we will get, sunshine, a couple clouds out there as the front goes by, but overall temperatures back into the 60s across the board. 62 for the high in Oceanside, and Borrego Springs, you'll be in the upper 70s. Mount Laguna, lower 50s there, so some outliers. But of course, that cooler air, that's going to stay largely through the interior southwest. We managed to keep things actually fairly mild for the finish of the weekend, trending a bit warmer into the start of next work week, which does have a good amount of sunshine for us. So basically the story is keeping the coastal clouds early on throughout the day and a cooler trend as we go through tomorrow. Lower 60s for the high, and then Sunday back to the lower 70s. Monday we'll be in the mid 70s, so that's going to be one of our warmer trend as we go into the start of the work week. Inland locations closing in on 80 degrees by the time we head into Monday, and that's largely sunny day for us. The mountains lower 50s after our cooler day Sunday in the mountains, temperatures in the mid 40s there. And for the deserts, we do have temperatures climbing back towards the mid 80s by the time we get into next Tuesday. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Melissa Constanzer.
We know that wealthier and whiter parts of San Diego County have fared far better during the pandemic than poorer areas. Now, KPBS investigative reporter Claire Tregesser tells us residents in high-income zip codes have so far been much more likely to be vaccinated against COVID-19.
No. From those, which one is the best?
Maria Achod Gonzalez is a 74-year-old housekeeper in El Cajon. She says she wants a COVID-19 vaccine, but doesn't know how to get one.
The doctor wanted us to go today, but since I had this appointment, I said that we call him back. I don't know who called us.
Access issues like hers are playing out across the county. Lower income areas with high COVID-19 case rates, such as Logan Heights, El Cajon, and Chula Vista, have low vaccination rates. Meanwhile, wealthier areas with low case rates have the highest vaccination rates. In places like Coronado, Rancho Santa Fe, Del Mar, and La Jolla, at least 1 in 4 residents have received vaccines. This disparity stems from the way the system has been designed, says Rebecca Fielding Miller, an epidemiologist at UC San Diego. For example, vaccine appointments are, for the most part, only offered online.
It's hard to access these websites. It really is. You needed access to the internet. You needed to be comfortable if you were at Petco with a form that at least asked you your social security number, even if you could just put in all zeros. And you needed to be pretty quick and anecdotally, and you needed to be pretty tech savvy.
After healthcare workers, older people have had access to the vaccine first, and that population is generally whiter and more well off. And so far, vaccines aren't available through the health networks many people of color use, even for those over 65.
Some of it is, I can't take time off work to go sit at Petco or my doctor's office or a superstation for hours. The only time that was available is a time I have to work, and I can't take that 3-hour block. That's possible. I don't have a private car, and I'm concerned about taking public transportation. The perceived benefits of running those risks or outweigh what the actual barriers are.
The problem is we have too many people who want vaccines.
Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez says it's crucial that racial and economic divides be addressed before vaccinations are opened up to more age groups and professions.
Because if we move on too quickly, those folks are going to continue to stay unvaccinated. Those barriers don't go away by opening it up to teachers and police officers.
Vaccination sites are now open across the county, and many have hundreds of appointment openings every day. But that doesn't mean people in South Bay or East County have ready access to a vaccine, Gonzalez says.
However, what happened is when they went online, individuals with more resources and capabilities took those vaccine appointments. So we had a ton of people coming from, North County down to Chula Vista.
Organizations such as the Chicano Federation are now working with the county to help people schedule and get transportation to vaccine appointments. Nancy Maldonado is the Chicano Federation's CEO.
We have dedicated staff that is helping people on the phone and in person to schedule those vaccine appointments all day, Monday through Friday, to schedule the vaccine appointments, but also to ensure that they have transportation. And if they don't, to help them find transportation, making sure that they have childcare.
They are also employing community health ambassadors known as promotoras. They station themselves outside grocery stores and other community locations where they talk to people about their concerns and help them get vaccine appointments.
We are seeing a very small increase in the number of Latino people in the county who are getting vaccinated. It's increasing slowly, obviously not at the rates that relative to the population, but we are starting to see some movement. So, to your point, hopeful that once all of these efforts get underway, that we'll start to really see that percentage increase.
Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
And we have more information at kpbs.org. Just click on the Vaccines tab on our homepage. You'll find a searchable map with clinic locations and links to make an appointment if you're eligible. The U.S. has officially rejoined the Paris Agreement. President Joe Biden signed an executive order hours after he was sworn in to recommit to the landmark climate pact. It took effect just today. Under the Paris Agreement, countries promised to enhance their commitments to curb greenhouse gas emissions.
No longer delay or do the bare minimum to address climate change. This is a global existential crisis, and we'll all suffer the consequences if we fail.
Former President Trump ordered that the U.S. leave the international treaty last year. California set a goal of zero-emission cars on the road by 2035. Now some automakers are following suit. SDSU's Miro Kopik has more in the Friday Business Report.
Ford Motor Company came out and announced that they're going to try to transition all their fleet to electric vehicles by 2030. Ford's committing over $22 billion to retrofit and change out their plants. And that's actually 5 years more aggressive than General Motors. General Motors last week announced that they were going to take and convert their fleet to electric by 2035. Now, what's going to help facilitate that is government spending. The U.S. government has a fleet of over 645,000 automobiles. They're going to look at converting all those cars over the next 5 or so years. Currently, only 2% of the cars in the United States are electric vehicles. And so there's a long way to go to make this conversion. But these automakers are really making a concerted effort, and you're going to start seeing large numbers of electric vehicle options from a consumer perspective in dealers kind of beginning by 2022 and 2023.
San Diego researchers hope a clone of a black-footed ferret will help the endangered animal claw its way back from the edge of extinction. Here's KPBS reporter Eric Anderson.
A biopsy from a ferret that died 30 years ago and was stored in San Diego's frozen zoo provided the genetic material. Zoo geneticist Oliver Ryder says the clone will add much-needed genetic diversity to the captive-bred black-footed ferret population.
Today, all living black-footed ferrets are descended from only 7 individuals that came out of the wild in 1985.
Ryder says the process opens the door to helping other endangered species.
This is not the end point to clone this animal. This is the beginning of the exploration about using this technology to bolster and sustain the genetic diversity of a population.
Ryder says a handful of other animals have been cloned from material stored in the zoo's frozen cell collection, but this is the first endangered species to have a successful cloning procedure. The black-footed ferret clone was produced by essentially the same process that created Dolly the sheep some 25 years ago. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
There are a lot of streaming choices for this weekend, including a trio of films by female directors that shatter traditional rules for women. Here's KPBS Cinema junkie Beth Accomando.
Nomadland serves up a different kind of road movie. Fern has lost everything: her husband, her job, her house. She sells what little she has left to buy a van and discovers a new way to define home. Chloe Zhao's film presents a character who refuses to conform to society's norms. Both the film and Frances McDormand's performance display grace and naturalism as they define a way of life that some people may not understand as a choice.
I spent a lot of time and money building the inside out, and a lot of people don't understand the value of that.
Her choice may have been forced upon her at first, but she makes a decision that a nomad's life is for her. Okay, here's the elevator pitch for Jumbo. A shy young woman takes a job at an amusement park and falls in love with the new ride. Now, before you dismiss this as a cringeworthy idea, let me just say that Jumbo is deliciously subversive. It's the monthly offering from Film Out, San Diego's LGBTQ film festival. It may not exactly qualify as an LGBTQ story, but it definitely displays a queer sensibility in its defiant embrace of an outsider who refuses to conform to any standard notion of love. It speaks to anyone who's been made to feel different or told that they're not normal. The brilliance of Zoe Widdock's film is that she lets us see Jumbo through the young woman's eyes and asks us to empathize with her unique romantic obsession.
Dear God.
From its opening score and fevered images, Saint Maud announces itself as an audaciously unsettling offering about the dangerous intersection of madness and religion. Maud is a young hospice nurse waiting for God to give her direction. Her mission, she decides, is to save the soul of her dying patient. The feature directing debut of Rose Glass is a searing portrait of a lonely and powerless young woman desperate for some kind of salvation. Glass gets us inside Maud's intoxicating visions with a darkly seductive visual style. I also want to give a quick shout out to a pair of films screening through Digital Gym Cinema. First is Minari, about a Korean family determined to start a farm in 1980s Arkansas. The film serves up a fresh take on immigrant stories as well as what defines the American dream. It's also fueled by beautiful performances and an intimate sense of family life. Then, there's the in-your-face raunchiness of Rudy Ray Moore's Dolomite, a cult icon from the end of the blaxploitation era. Moore was celebrated in the recent Eddie Murphy film, My Name is Dolomite, that looked to the crazy story behind the making of this no-budget, outside-the-mainstream film that catered to Black audiences of the time. Film Geeks San Diego is screening the film through the weekend, and I'll be co-hosting a Sunday Zoom discussion with author David F. Walker. So lots of great options for movie lovers this weekend. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
And we have a breaking news update for you. A San Diego County Superior Court judge has granted a temporary restraining order request allowing high school and youth sports to resume. The judge added they must follow similar COVID protocols imposed for collegiate sports. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.